time has expired. We're going to move to question time, and I'll call Senator Cash.
Thank you, President. And my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Hamas is a terrorist organisation in exclusive control of the Gaza Strip. Hamas slaughtered 1,200 Israeli civilians in cold blood on the 7th of October 2023, including numerous women and children. Hamas then took hundreds of hostages, many whom they also murdered. And Hamas still holds a number of hostages in their tunnels 2 years later. Hamas routinely uses the people of Gaza as human shields. They use hospitals for military operations, they disrupt the flow of aid of their own population and constantly say that their primary aim is to wipe Israel off the map. Given the brutal terrorist organisation Hamas continues to exclusively control the Gaza Strip, will the Albanese government categorically rule out ever recognising a Palestinian state while Hamas is in control of Gaza?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Cash for the question, for the opportunity to speak about recognition and also, again, reiterate the same condemnation of Hamas that the government has issued since the horrific events of October 7. So I know that Senator Cash only wants to talk about Hamas. I would say to her, I've answered your question and the questions of your colleagues since this war began about our position on Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organisation. We condemn them. They are a listed terrorist organisation dedicated to the destruction of the State of Israel. We have a very clear position in relation to Hamas. In relation to recognition, as you would know, all countries, including Arab countries, have made clear that they want to see a reformed Palestinian Authority and wish to see Hamas demilitarised. Countries have made clear that they want the security architecture in the Middle East to assure the security of Israel. This is where the international community is at. This is where the discussion is, Senator, and this is where the government is engaging. And why are we engaging on these issues? We are engaging on these issues because we know, as do the rest of the international community. You would have seen the announcement by the United Kingdom following the announcement also by the President of France, that if we want long-term peace and security in the Middle East for both Israelis and Palestinians alike, then we need to deal with the issue of a Palestinian state. That is the best way to ensure stability and peace for both Israelis and Palestinians alike. So, Senator, I would suggest to you it might be good to grapple with that reality, because that is where the discussion is, that is where the Middle East discussion is internationally, and where
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has
expired.
Senator Cash, first supplementary.
I ask again, will the Albanese government categorically rule out ever recognising a Palestinian state while Hamas is in control of Gaza? In particular, that former Labor frontbencher, now backbencher Ed Husic, has said that he believes right now is the time to recognise a Palestinian state.
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. And what I would say to Senator Cash is please refer to my previous answer and the multiple answers I have given over the last years since this conflict began. And really, people should understand in this place just how out of touch the coalition is on this. They don't even support a ceasefire, which the whole world, including President Trump, support. You do not even support a ceasefire. That is how extreme the position of the coalition is with this person as Shadow Foreign Minister. She does not even support a ceasefire that President Trump himself supports. That says something about the extent to which your position is divorced from the reality of what is happening on the ground, what is happening for people in the Middle East, and what is happening to the women and children of Gaza who are no, they are not all Hamas, Senator. This is the problem with your position.
Time has expired, Minister Wong. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
Almost every legitimate body has the goal of enduring, negotiated and a peaceful two-state solution. The fighting could end tomorrow, but so far Hamas has rejected every peace plan and opted to continue the conflict and suffering for its own purposes. Does the government acknowledge, as many Arab countries in the region now appear to have done, that the primary obstacle to peace in Gaza is not Israel but Hamas?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
I think the question that we are all confronted by when we see what has happened in this horrific conflict over so long is what can we now do to make a contribution to peace and stability? What can we now do to make a contribution to the provision of aid to people who are starving as a consequence, in great part, of a deliberate decision by the Israeli government to withhold aid, which was made. So, Senator, we have all condemned Hamas. I consistently, as does the Prime Minister, call for hostages to be released. But I would suggest to you, Senator, your position is out of kilter where the international community is going. You don't even support a ceasefire, which is supported by President Trump and the whole world. So, at some point, it would be good to be able to say something without her constantly talking at me. I've been pretty reasonable. I've let her go. She is the leader of the opposition.
Thank you, Minister. Senator De Leger.
Thanks very much, President. This is not my first speech. My question is to the Minister for Youth, Senator Walsh. I refer to the Albanese Labor government's legislated social media minimum age limit and the government's ongoing commitment to delivering world-leading online safety measures. How is the government taking action to protect young Australians now and into the future from persuasive and a pervasive pull of social media and giving parents across the country peace of mind?
Thank you, Senator De Leger. Minister Walsh.
Thank you very much, Senator De Leger, for the question, and we look forward to hearing your first speech. And I am pleased to get this as my first question as the Minister for Youth. And as the Minister for Youth and the Minister for Early Childhood Education, I'm acutely aware that the first 16 years of a person's life really matter. And I know that Senator De Leger shares that view. The Albanese Labor government is stepping up to help parents and their kids to be safer online with world-leading laws. From 10 December, social media won't be an assumed part of life for Australian families. And Australians should be immensely proud that we are prioritising the online safety of our children and leading the world with these reforms. The relationship between social media and children's mental health is one of the most important conversations of our time. Social media connects us, binds us, but is also used to abuse, control and harass us. Put simply, we want our children to have another 3 years away from the perils of online abuse. The first 16 years of life are incredibly important for a young person's development. There is a place for social media, but there's not a place for predatory algorithms damaging the brains of our kids. Young people will have 3 more years to know who they are before social media assumes who they are. These years shape a young person's trajectory in so many ways, including academic, social and emotional development. They lay the foundation for future learning, health and well-being. We also know the positive early experiences that foster healthy development, while negative ones have lasting harmful effects. And that's why we're delivering this important change for children and for their families.
Thank you, Minister Walsh. Senator De Leger, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. The Albanese Labor government takes the impact and danger of online harm seriously, especially when it comes to our kids. How is the government's historic legislation to delay access to social media until the age of 16 holding big tech companies accountable and families at the holding big tech accountable and families at the heart of decision-making? What will this legislation mean for Australia's young people?
Thank you, Senator De Leger. Minister Walsh.
Thank you again, Senator. And the Albanese Labor government is on the side of families, and we have and will continue to face pressure from major companies. But we can't be clearer. We are on the side of families in this. Delaying access to social media until the age of 16 will protect young Australians at a critical stage of their development, giving them 3 more years to build real-world connections and online resilience. There are heavy penalties for companies who fail to take reasonable steps to prevent underage account holders accessing their services of up to $49.5 million per breach. We want Australian parents and carers to know the Albanese government has your back. We are putting parents before platforms because we know what a gift childhood is, and this gives children back their childhood.
Thank you, Minister. Senator De Leger, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. The social media minimum age rules will deliver on the Albanese Labor government's commitment to protect young Australians at a critical stage of their development. How is the government responding to expert advice from the E-Safety Commissioner and providing more certainty for parents and kids on the upcoming social media minimum age restriction?
Minister Walsh.
Thank you, President, and thank you again for the question. In response to advice from the E-Safety Commissioner, Ms Julie Inman-Grant, the online safety rules specify which types of online services will not be captured by the social media law, including messaging apps, health and education services. From December, all services that meet the definition of age-restricted social media platform in the Act and are not excluded in the rules will be subject to the social media minimum age law. This law requires social media platforms to take reasonable steps to prevent Australians under 16 from having an account from the 10th of December 2025. The onus is strictly on social media platforms. There are no penalties for under 16s who may gain access to an age-restricted platform, or for parents or educators who may provide that access. Again, Australians should be immensely proud that we are prioritising the online safety of our children and leading the world.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. The Prime Minister told Australians on at least 71 occasions, all you need is your Medicare card, not a credit card, and it would be free to see a GP. Minister, does the Prime Minister stand by his promise he made to Australians at least 71 times before the election that all you need is your Medicare card because to see your GP will be free?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
We absolutely stand by the policy we announced in the election and the policies that we implemented previously, and we have made clear, which, yes, as Senator Gallagher reminds me, you actually supported, Senator. That's how good they were. And those policies will see Australians being able to access urgent care clinics, which, as you know, we have increased the number of those both in the first term from what we promised, and now we have committed to further investment in urgent care clinics. And as you know, Senator, they do provide access to bulk billing. And yesterday I took the opportunity to remind you that of the history of our investment in bulk billing in this country. In 2023, we tripled the bulk billing incentive for pensioners and concession card holders. Now, when those 11 million Australians go to the GP, they are bulk billed 90% of the time.
Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, President. On direct relevance, I was quite clear. All I asked the Minister was whether the statements made by the Prime Minister, which categorically state Australians will get free access to their GP, all Australians, will they stand by that?
Senator Ruston, I did remind you yesterday, call your point of order. There's no need to repeat the question, and the Minister's being directly relevant. Minister, sorry.
Again, President, I just remind the Senator that bulk billing is the way in which you deliver access to Australians with your Medicare card. So that is the primary way in which governments ensure we do deliver that. Now, as I said, in 2023, we tripled the bulk billing incentive for pensioners and concession card holders. Now, that means when those 11 million Australians go to the GP, they are bulk billed 90% of the time. 90% of the time. And now what are we doing? We are expanding that reform because we're extending that bulk billing incentive to cover all 26 million Australians for the first time. And we were upfront with Australians that we anticipate by 2030 that will enable 9 out of 10 GP visits to be bulk billed. Now, I don't know which part of that, Senator, you don't support. Which part of that do you not support? I thought you did support this policy at the last election, or have you reverted to the position that you—
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Ruston, first supplementary.
Thank you very much, President. Minister, if the Prime Minister was indeed telling the truth, why then did Australians spend more than $166 million in out-of-pocket costs at the GP in the month of May 2025? That is $166 million spent by Australians out of their own pockets while the Prime Minister was waving his Medicare around. This is according to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. Was the Prime Minister telling the truth?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
So this from a member of a party that wanted to impose a GP tax. This from the member of a party who froze indexation so it became less, not more affordable for Australians to see a doctor, and this from a shadow minister who used to tell people that Medicare was unsustainable, now wants to have a go at us for actually trying to get 90% of Australians the capacity to see a doctor free of charge, to be bulk billed. I mean, this is the policy of the Lee opposition, that they actually do not want to expand bulk billing.
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, President. Well, your feigned indignation does not answer
Senator
the question.
Ruston, why are you on your feet? Order, 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 order. Senator Gallagher.
President, we have noticed the tactic of the opposition taking numerous points of order where they just repeat their question. And I'm just wondering whether you could consider that in how you deal with these, because it is apparently just to repeat the question that they already asked.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. I haven't called you. Thank you, Minister Gallagher. I did indeed remind Senator Ruston to get to the point of order and not repeat the question. And in your latest attempt to stand up, Senator Ruston, you didn't even suggest it was a point of order. It was just launching into the politics of it. So I think across the chamber everyone needs to think about a point of order and put it in the spirit and the way in which it's described in the standing orders. Senator Ruston.
On the response to the point of order, on direct relevance, I would suggest to you, President, that my points of order have always been on relevance. I apologise for not saying it was actually raised on relevance. The minister is not going in any way to answering my question.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. The time that you got to your feet before this time, you simply made a statement. You didn't even mention point of order. The minister is being relevant, and I will ask her to continue with her response.
We talk about indignation. Well, yeah, I think there's a fair bit of indignation about an opposition, a coalition party that has spent so many years trying to unpick and unravel Medicare, that froze bulk billing, Medicare rebates for 6 years. That tried to introduce a GP tax, now coming in here and pretending that they care about Medicare.
Senator Ruston, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Prime Minister told Australians on at least 71 occasions that, and I quote, free to see a GP, or I also quote, all you need is your Medicare card, not your credit card. But, Minister, the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare data says that Australians paid almost $2 billion in out-of-pocket costs to see a GP in the year to May 2025. Minister, when will this $2 billion of out-of-pocket costs be reduced to zero, as promised by the Prime Minister?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
Well, as I said, an $8.5 billion investment in Medicare, extending the bulk billing incentive to cover all 26 million Australians for the very first time. I mean, let's be clear. We have been upfront with the Australian people. 9 out of 10 visits free bulk billed by 2030, and the investment in 50 plus 87 urgent care clinics. Sorry, other way around. 87 urgent care clinics plus an additional 50, all bulk billed. And this is what we do. What do? They want GP taxes freezes on Medicare rebates, and this shadow minister telling Australians, I'm sorry, Medicare's unsustainable. And now you come in here and say, oh, well, your policies—
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Thank you much, President. On direct relevance, I asked the minister a specific question 3 times today now, and she hasn't answered any of them. Could you please bring her to answering the question, unless she can't?
Senator Ruston, the minister is being relevant to the question. I'll ask her to continue.
President, it seems remarkable, doesn't it, that they don't understand that the way you deliver free access to a doctor is through bulk billing. So she thinks bulk billing isn't relevant to visits to the doctor. Well, that says something about the lack of understanding on that side.
Has expired. Senator Whish-Wilson.
Thank you, President. My question is to the new Minister for Environment, Minister Watt. Minister, studies have shown that toxic microplastics are infiltrating our lives, our brains, our blood, placentas and lungs. Some projections have oceans containing more plastic than fish by 2050. Next week, your department, or yourself potentially, will attend the final round of negotiations in Geneva to develop a global plastics treaty to end plastic pollution. The Albanese government has claimed to be a leader in these negotiations to date, pushing for legally binding action, not simple voluntary agreements, to reduce plastic pollution in our lives. Minister, do you think Australia's credibility on the global stage is undermined by Australia currently having no legally binding laws of its own at home? Specifically, no federal bans on harmful single-use plastics, no legally binding national waste reduction targets, no legal agreements that hold big producers and retailers responsible for the plastic that they produce and pollute with.
Thank you, Senator Whish-Wilson. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Whish-Wilson, who I understand is one of the 2 Green spokespeople for environmental matters. The 5, you've got 10. It's Scott Morrison-esque, the number of shadow ministers for the environment in the Greens. Well, happy to meet with all of you individually. I welcome the question from Senator Whish-Wilson, and particularly his inquiry about how Australia can be taken seriously on the international stage about these matters. And I can assure Senator Whish-Wilson that, having recently attended the United Nations Ocean Conference in Nice, I can assure you that we are internationally seen as a world leader when it comes to these matters. What was very clear at that conference was that the commitments Australia has made in general around oceans protection matters, including our commitment to pass legislation to see the ratification of the High Seas Biodiversity Treaty, is very much welcomed, but also the action that we've taken as a member of the High Ambition Coalition when it comes to the plastics treaty that Senator Whish-Wilson is asking about is also very much welcomed. I participated in an event at that conference that included representatives of upwards of 80 countries who are members of the High Ambition Coalition for signing that plastic treaty. Senator Whish-Wilson is correct that in the next few weeks the treaty will be up for discussion at the relevant conference in Geneva. That is not a conference I will be attending because I will be hard at work here in Australia. But we do take these matters seriously about plastic pollution, and I do seriously welcome the interest from Senator Whish-Wilson, who I know cares about these matters very deeply. The reality is that plastic pollution is a global problem. It's going to need global solutions, but we are in the meantime getting on with work domestically, and I'm happy to talk more about that should there be some further questions.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Whish-Wilson.
Thank you, Minister. I'd be happy to go in your place if that helped. It does stick out like a sore thumb that, while claiming to be a driving force behind the High Ambition Coalition for Ending Plastic Pollution globally, your government has not legislated binding action on reducing plastic pollution at home. Minister, will you today take the opportunity to show the necessary leadership by committing to this chamber to legislate reform to tackle the plastic waste crisis in this term of parliament?
Thank you, Senator Whish-Wilson. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Whish-Wilson. Of course, I would expect Senator Whish-Wilson to focus on particular aspects of this issue that the government continues to work on. But I think it is worth reminding the chamber that even in our first term of office under Minister Plibersek in this portfolio, Labor has delivered over $1 billion with governments and industry to boost recycling by 1.4 million tonnes a year, including $60 million for soft plastics, and creating thousands of new jobs in the process. We've also been working with states and territories to reform packaging regulations with strict new rules and targets, in addition to the work that we've been doing on the international stage for a binding treaty. Now, I acknowledge that there is still more to be done on those matters, but we did take action in our first term to get this process underway after, yet again, an issue being ignored for 10 years under the coalition, and we expect to continue that work over the course of this term. I'd be more than happy to speak further with Senator Whish-Wilson about our plans in this regard, and I'd welcome the Greens' support to back in those efforts as well.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Whish-Wilson, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. We'll certainly look forward to some legislation on this. It's been widely reported that the global plastic treaty negotiations have so far failed to achieve any binding action between nations because big business who produce and retail plastic have flooded the negotiations and undermine outcomes, insisting on weak voluntary agreements. Is the resistance to lobbying from big business at home in Australia also the reason, while after 3 years in government you have been unable to take action on legislating to end the plastic waste crisis?
Thank you, Senator Whish-Wilson. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Whish-Wilson. I do have to take issue with Senator Whish-Wilson's characterisation of this because it is not the case that this government has failed to take action on these matters. And in my previous answer, I went through some of the steps that we'd taken in our first term to deal with the very real issue of plastic pollution, along with a range of other steps that we've taken in relation to recycling and the circular economy. Again, we recognise that there's more to do, and we will be doing more over the course of this term, in partnership with the states and territories, who of course have a lot of responsibilities when it comes to these matters as well, and waste matters in general. But I am aware that, like we see at many international conferences, there are some countries who aren't as supportive of action as Australia is, as many other nations are, but we'll be working very closely with those other members of the High Ambition Coalition to get that plastics treaty done and to really take another step towards better regulation of plastics in the future.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Marielle Smith.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Today, the Australian Bureau of Statistics released new figures that show that headline and underlying inflation are at their lowest rates in 4 years. Can the Minister update the Senate on the latest economic data and tell us what progress has been made in the fight against inflation?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Smith for this really important question. And we have had some very pleasing results out of the ABS with their inflation data released this morning. It does show that both headline and underlying inflation have fallen to their lowest rates in almost 4 years. It also shows that headline inflation has been now in the band for a full year. Trimmed mean inflation was also down when we compare data from the June quarter to the March quarter. And I'll just remind those who weren't here last term, when we came to office, headline inflation had a 6 in front of it and was rising. It is now about a third of that. When we came to office, trimmed mean inflation was 4.9% and rising. It's now almost half of that. Quarterly and monthly inflation down, headline and underlying inflation down, goods and services inflation down, tradable and non-tradable inflation down. On all measures, we can see that the substantial progress and welcome progress has been made in the inflation challenge that has affected all countries, and particularly here. Great to see that inflation now well and sustainably within band. At the same time we've been doing that, we've been getting real wages going again, living standards are increasing again, 2 surpluses, we've got the debt down, interest rates have come down. But we know the job isn't done. There is more work to do. We acknowledge that. There are issues, there's structural issues in our economy, and we also recognise that people still remain under significant pressure, which is why we have more cost of living relief rolling out the door. And indeed, it's one of the reasons why the Treasurer will be convening the Productivity Roundtable for 3 days next month.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Marielle Smith, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. The Albanese Labor government has worked hard on the global fight against inflation. Our government has continued its key focus on cost of living measures to help households deal with the impact of higher inflation, as we also work on budget repair. Minister, how important has budget repair been in this fight against inflation?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Smith for the supplementary, and she is right that budget repair has been a key focus of both the Treasurer, myself in the finance portfolio, but the whole government over the last 3 years. And I think what the data out of the ABS, but also the fact that we've delivered $100 billion worth of savings since we came to government, show that the Australian Labor Party is actually the party of responsible economic management. That has been well and truly consolidated with the approach we took over the last 3 years, and we will continue it in the next term as well. So we have made a number of savings right across government. As I said, $100 billion, $94 billion of those in savings delivered last term, and then, of course, we announced $6.4 billion worth of savings in the election campaign that will be achieved over the next 3 years.
Minister. Senator Marielle Smith, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. What other measures has the Albanese Labor government invested in that will continue to help households this year?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President. I thank Senator Smith for the question, and I can note how silent those opposite are. You notice? I mean, every other time they're not. We know Senator Canavan called you irrelevant, but now you're almost invisible. You're irrelevant and invisible, and I know those opposite are going to hate this, but our government, when we look at what we came into, where we arrived in 2022 and where we are now, employment is up, participation rates are up, gender pay gap is down, women employed full-time up, manufacturing jobs up, industrial disputes down, annual headline inflation down, annual wage growth up, annual real wages up. That is what a Labor government delivers: responsible economic management, budget repair, dealing with inflation and making sure people can earn more and keep more of what they earn.
Thank you, Minister. Order. Order. I do acknowledge the quiet from the other side, and I would ask you, I am in charge of the chamber, so if a minister encourages you to be noisy, please ignore them. Senator Tyrrell.
Good advice, President. Thank you. My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Infrastructure, Senator McCarthy. In April 2025, the Albanese government announced an increase to the Tasmanian Freight Equalisation Scheme's assistance rates over 2 years. For Tasmania, the cost of living is the cost of shipping. What we buy comes in on ships. What we sell, we ship out. But when I chaired the 2024 Select Committee into the operation of the scheme, I heard that the thing Tasmanians want most urgently and need most critically is streamlining. The TFES is slow to administer, slow to deliver, overtly complicated to apply, and for many producers the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Tasmanian industry spent all federal election listening for some commitment from Labor and the Coalition to modernise this bureaucratic and outdated scheme. I didn't hear one. Did I miss it?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Tyrrell, for the question. And no, you would not have missed the fact that our government has committed very strongly to Tasmania. We have delivered on our election commitment to increase assistance under the Tasmanian Freight Equalisation Scheme, and we are backing Tasmanian communities and businesses by boosting the TFES payment by 25% for the next 2 years, so they do get a fair go.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Big businesses can't afford to have someone on payroll who just handles TFES applications day in, day out. For small businesses, you can't do that. So most of the money paid out under the scheme currently goes to the big producers. Of Tasmania's 130-odd registered exporting businesses, 5 of them receive 1/3 of the TFES reimbursement. Without reform, won't your 25% increase just go to the big players and not help out the little guys?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Naturally, our election commitment to Tasmania is an important one. Clearly, if there are those particular issues that you have in terms of the people that are coming to you, I know that the minister would like to hear from you directly in terms of those particular stakeholders. But I do say that we were very clear throughout the election campaign, President, that we were very clear on delivering our election commitments right across Australia and indeed especially in Tasmania. And it's wonderful to see the Tasmanian representation that we do have in our government.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. During the election, you also announced an independent review to ensure TFES is fit for purpose. Do you not already know whether it is fit for purpose? I can't understand how there's any doubt on this question. Labor was represented at the Senate Select Committee public hearings. Former Senator Urquhart was there. You heard from witnesses and read the submissions. They told you it's not fit for purpose verbatim, repeatedly. What do you expect in your quote-unquote independent review will tell you?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. Senator Tyrrell, I believe I have answered your questions in regards to our commitment to Tasmania and TFES, but I will take on board some of those points you've just raised and get back to you.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bragg.
Thank you very much, President. And my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Now, as you may recall, Minister, last week you did not know how many houses the Housing Australia Future Fund had built. My question is, do you know the number they've built as at today?
Minister Wong.
Well, I'm asked about housing numbers. Can I give you a housing number, Senator? I'll give you the number of 80,000 homes that you are trying to stop being built. 80,000 homes that you are trying to stop being built, with the position that you have announced in the opposition to the built-to-rent regulations. Now, I would make this point. We are getting on with a job. We are delivering 55,000 social and affordable homes. 18,000 homes are in planning or construction
Minister,
through the
please resume your seat. Senator Bragg.
I'm reluctant to have to raise a point of order, but the question was very clear. How many houses has the Housing Australia Future Fund completed, built?
Order. I believe the minister is being relevant. I will listen. Thank you, Senator Bragg.
Already 18,000 homes in planning and construction through the Housing Australia Future Fund and the National Housing Accord. But I'll give you another number, Senator. I'll give you another number. 5,000 social and affordable homes that during the caretaker period we asked you for support to sign contracts on. 5,000 homes, and you refused. You refused. So this opposition...
Order. I can barely hear the minister's response. Minister, please continue.
President. So not only, President, did the coalition delay the Housing Australia Future Fund, thereby holding up additional supply, people...
Order. I'm waiting for order. Senator Ruston, I'm not quite sure which part of me calling for order you failed to respond to. Minister, please continue.
Not only did the coalition delay the Housing Australia Future Fund, thereby preventing housing construction from starting, during the election campaign, the minister wrote to the opposition asking that 5,000 homes could proceed under the caretaker conventions, and you said no. And now you have 80,000 homes.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Minister, Please resume your seat. Senator Cash.
It's a point of order in relation to direct relevance. The question actually, with all due respect, President, could not have been clearer. Does the minister know how many homes that have been built? There is a fundamental difference between a built home and a press release.
Senator Cash, thank you. I'll draw the minister back to the question. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. And as I said, I've already given the number of houses which are currently in planning or construction under the HAF and the National Housing Accord facility. But I think it is reasonable,
Minister,
Senator.
Please resume your seat. Senator Bragg.
The point of order on relevance. The question was how many have been built.
I think the minister is being relevant to the question, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong. Minister Wong.
Am I?
Yeah, I've called you. Sorry.
Senator Bragg, I know that you don't want to see 580 HAF projects in Maryland's delivered, 10 in Casino and South
Thank you, Minister.
144 in Maroubra, 221 in Macquarie Park and Lane
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Bragg, first supplementary.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, thank you.
Order.
Okay, I'm not a member of that club. Thank you.
Senators. Well, thank you, Senators, but I was asking for silence. Senator Bragg, I'm going to invite you to begin again and restart the clock.
Thank you. Thank you, President. So, as at 31 March 2025, Minister, it seems that just $223 million of the required $500 million had been debited from the Housing Australia Future Fund account. Minister, was the remaining $277 million debited to spend on houses between 1 April and 30 June this year?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister, order. Senator Wong, I haven't called you. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get order in the chamber. Minister Wong.
Sorry, President. Thank you for calling me. So I'm asked a question by Senator Bragg, or Braggy as his colleagues call him. I quite like that. About the lack of expenditure on a fund that they wanted to abolish, that they held up, and during the election they refused to allow expenditure from. So just so I get that clear, Senator Bragg, you're asking for expenditure from a fund that you wanted to abolish, that you opposed and held up, and that during the election campaign—
Order. I've asked for order. Interjections across the chamber. Senator Cash and Senator McGrath. Order. Senator McGrath, come to order. Senator McGrath and Senator Wong. Minister Wong, please continue.
I again repeat it because it really bears some repeating, doesn't it? The Coalition is asking us why there hasn't been more spent on a fund that they opposed and wanted to abolish. Their election costings abolish it. I'm not surprised you're embarrassed.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Bragg.
On relevance, the question was about the financial outgoings of this scheme.
That's right, and you asked about the scheme, and the minister is entitled to respond to your question, and the minister is being relevant. Minister Wong.
But it is interesting, President, that they complain about the money out of the scheme being less than it should be, when they actually wanted all of it abolished, where they held it up, and they, during the election campaign, refused to agree to 5,000 houses being commenced out of the
Thank you,
HAF.
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Bragg, second supplementary.
Well, I think we'll just have one more go at this. So the question is, how many houses have been built as at today, and how much of that money was spent in the last quarter of the last financial year? It's two simple questions.
Minister Wong.
I've already answered the question about the number of houses that are currently in construction or being planned. And what I would say to the coalition is I think Australians understand, including from the display today, that there is only one party that is seeking to add to housing supply in this country, and that is the Australian Labor Party. There's only one party who is seeking to add to housing supply in this country, and that is the Australian Labor Party. There is one party that has always stood in the way of more houses for Australia, that are continuing to stand in the way for more houses for Australians, and that is the coalition, led by obviously Ms Lee, but also Senator Bragg, who seems to have this ideological view that government shouldn't somehow help provide housing. Well, we have a different view, Senator Bragg. We have a different view. We want to build more houses for more Australians.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Thorpe.
Thank you, President. My question is for the Minister for Indigenous Australians. Minister, earlier this month you acknowledged that the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody said that to reduce deaths in custody we must reduce incarceration rates. You said this will be achieved through the Closing the Gap agreement. But it's clear that states and territories are not even trying to reduce incarceration. This week, Victoria is passing laws that will jail more of our people. The NT government is doing the same, and even reintroducing spit hoods for 10-year-old children. What action will you take to hold states and territories accountable when they intentionally break their commitments?
Thank you, Senator Thorpe. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Thorpe, for your question. Recently we held the Joint Council on Closing the Gap in the Northern Territory, and one of the first things that we did do there, President, was to, as a joint group with First Nations ministers and with the coalition of peaks, was to call on all governments to commit and maintain true commitment to the agreement. It is tough, without a doubt. It is very tough. There are no actual penalties in that agreement as to not agreeing to it. I remind all parliaments and all cabinets across Australia that they have signed up to this. Both sides of the political spectrum have signed up to it, President, and it is very, very tough, Senator Thorpe, to be able to ensure across the country with all of those jurisdictions that they adhere to that, in particular the area of justice. We've seen rising numbers of Indigenous people being incarcerated, both youth and older people, in particular in a number of states and the Northern Territory. But I have to keep working at it, Senator Thorpe, and I have to keep working with my colleagues here in the federal parliament on all sides, but especially in the cabinet.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Thorpe, first supplementary.
Thank you. The Northern Territory Land Councils and NARJA are calling for federal funding constraints on the Northern Territory government. They know the Commonwealth has more tools at its disposal to drive progress. When will you acknowledge that conversations are not working and withhold funding from states who introduce laws that harm our people?
Thank you, Senator Thorpe. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. And that is correct, Senator Thorpe, with the organisations in the Northern Territory, in particular the land councils. They are calling for strict control on the funding that goes to the Northern Territory. The difficulty here, Senator Thorpe, is that nearly 80% of the Northern Territory budget comes from the Commonwealth. So we have to be responsible in our response to the Northern Territory, but we also have to be responsible to all citizens of the Northern Territory who receive that. And I am looking at those numbers, and I am looking at those links in terms of the federal agreements, but not just for the Northern Territory. This also has to be about the federal agreements and the communications that we have with all states.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Thorpe, second supplementary.
Thank you. The count has just passed 600 deaths in custody since the Royal Commission. We've had 17 deaths this year. This is not slowing, and incarceration rates are rising. We know the Commonwealth has powers that you've chosen not to use yet. When will you use all the powers you have to stop this? Where is your red line, Minister?
Thank you, Senator Thorpe. Minister McCarthy.
Well, we don't want to see any deaths in custody, any death, any Australian die in custody. You go into custody, you go into prisons for a reason. Sometimes those reasons are fair and sometimes they're unfair, but we certainly want to see people come back out if that's what they're in there to do. I think that's really important to point out. But in terms of what we're trying to do, I am working with the Attorney-General, who I'm very pleased to see is taking this on and has met with you also, Senator Thorpe, which is an important step in terms of trying to look at the issues around the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody, the outstanding recommendations, your calls for an oversight. We are taking that very seriously. And we are also looking at this conversation more broadly with all of the Attorney-Generals across the country at SCAG when they meet next month.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whittaker.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Environment and Water, Senator Watt. Yesterday, the Minister for Climate Change and Energy announced further support for renewable energy projects, delivering a commitment the Albanese Labor government made to the Australian people at the last election. In order to achieve our ambitious target for renewable energy generation, environmental approvals need to keep pace with this rollout. How are timely approvals through the Minister's Department supporting our nation's goal of achieving net zero by 2050?
Thank you, Senator Whittaker. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Whittaker, another terrific advocate for Western Australia, joining our ranks. Well, yesterday the Albanese government did announce that we will substantially expand the Capacity Investment Scheme by 25%. And that means we will underwrite the construction of 40 gigawatts of large-scale solar, wind and storage by the end of the decade. In capacity terms, this is nearly twice as much energy infrastructure as the country's existing coal-fired power fleet. This investment is just one of a number of actions the Albanese government is taking to accelerate the rollout of renewables. Another is taking action to speed up the approvals process. Yesterday, as I mentioned, I announced the speedy approval of the 90-megawatt Somerville solar farm in the Richmond Valley in the electorate held by the Nationals Deputy Leader, Kevin Hogan. The news was reported on by the ABC under the headline, "A solar farm approved in weeks shows how renewables rollout could be sped up." And it's worth noting that the picture used in the article shows what the National Party says is simply not possible. It shows what must be hundreds of sheep grazing under and between thousands of solar panels, proving once again that agriculture and renewables can coexist. I know that's a hard concept to get your head around. I know. You just got to get out there and have a look at it's actually happening. This example and other recent quick approvals of renewables projects shows that if you get the system right and if everyone is working cooperatively, it is possible to get much faster approvals while also generating environmental gains through the development of cleaner energy. Unfortunately, while there are these sorts of good examples to point to, we need to see more of them. And what we want to do is make sure that quicker approvals, which meet strong national environmental standards, actually become the norm rather than being exceptions. And that is one of the reasons we do need to reform our environmental laws. I look forward to working constructively with all sides of this chamber over the coming months to ensure that these very important reforms can be implemented for the benefit of all Australians.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whittaker, first supplementary.
Excellent answer. Thank you, Minister. Earlier this year, the Albanese Labor government approved the Narrogin wind farm in my home state of Western Australia. Why is the rollout of renewables a good thing for the West?
Thank you, Senator Whittaker. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. Well, Senator Whittaker is right. The Narrogin wind farm in Western Australia's wheat belt was approved by the Albanese government on the 1st of May, and it's expected to generate enough power for 130,000 homes. It is sad, though, to see projects like this not being supported by everyone in Western Australia. And as I mentioned yesterday over the weekend, we all saw Senator Cash up to no good backing an anti-net zero motion at the Western Australian Liberal Conference. When her party leader, Susan Lee, is desperately trying to hold her party room together, Why would the Liberal Senate leader be so publicly opposed to her own leader? Well, News Limited columnist James Campbell had a bit to say about this, and he said, and I quote, "To some of her colleagues, the way Senator Cash is behaving is reminiscent of how Nick Minchin did everything he could to make Malcolm Turnbull's life hell when he was the Liberal leader in 2009. So rather than the Coalition Senate leader bringing good policy up, she's working to bring the Coalition leader down."
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whittaker, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Albanese...
Order.
The Albanese Labor government is unified in its approach to investing in renewables to achieve net zero by 2050, which will ultimately protect our precious environment. How important is policy certainty around our energy market, particularly for business investment around the country?
Thank you, Senator Whittaker. Minister Watt.
Well, thanks, Senator Whittaker. Our government's position on protecting the environment by investing in cheap and green renewable energy is clear. But what isn't clear is the Coalition's position on this matter, because we've now got this incredible situation where the Leader of the Coalition in the House of Reps is supportive of net zero, but the Leader of the Coalition in the Senate is not. And this week we've learned that even the Coalition Senate team are deeply divided on net zero. We've seen Senator Cash and Senator Canavan in a unity ticket fighting net zero, but last night Senator Sharma went where few moderates dare to go, Sky After Dark, to say, and I quote, "We need to certainly listen to the voices in the party room, but we also need to remember that we've lost a lot of people from this room, and they're the seats we need to win." Imagine that, a Coalition member who thinks it's actually worth listening to the millions of Australians who support net zero. Senator Sharma, it must be a very lonely place over there in that party room at the moment, because whether it's climate, education or housing, the divisions run deep in the Liberal Party as Senator Cash tries to tear Susan Lee down.
Has expired. Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister for Industry and Innovation, Senator Ayres. Minister, the Australian Workers' Union said earlier this month that, and I quote, "Between skyrocketing energy prices, cheap dumping and tariff wars, smelters such as Nyrstar and Glencore Mount Isa are up against a wall." Does the minister agree with the Australian Workers' Union that the skyrocketing energy prices, which his government has presided over, are risking good union jobs at Australia's manufacturing smelters?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Ayres.
Well, thank you, Senator Canavan. I'm very pleased, I have to say, with the contribution that Mr Farrow, as leader of the Australian Workers' Union, and his union, which has very strong membership and has a rich history of collective bargaining and representing that important sector of Australian manufacturing, has had to say about the importance of that sector. And I'm really pleased with the collaborative approach that the Labor movement has taken. Mr Murphy from the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union and Mr Farrow on a unity ticket focused on the issues that matter for that sector and their members. That's a sort of lesson in sort of working class discipline and focus that wouldn't hurt.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator Cash.
President, the point of order is in relation to relevance. The quote is in relation to skyrocketing energy prices. That's what the AWU has said.
Thank you, Senator Cash. The minister is being relevant. Minister Ayres.
Thank you. I just say we welcome Mr Farrow's view, and I welcome the views put, in particular in relation to your home state of Queensland, by Ms McRae, the Mayor of Mount Isa, who's been up and about here in Parliament House and on national radio and television making the case for that important industrial community. I actually welcome people making the case for their communities in a constructive way that is focused on the facts. Mr Farrow's view I've listened to in quite some detail, as you can imagine. There are issues pressing on
that sector. They are not all energy related, but some of them are energy price related. Some of them, of course, there is a consistent stream of issues here, and I'm looking forward to the next.
Seat. Senator Canavan.
I'm not sure I'm looking forward to it, but
sorry. I invite you to do your first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Minister, reports this week suggest that the owners of the Mount Isa copper smelter and the Townsville copper refinery have told staff to brace for a pause on production and potential job losses. The Australian Workers' Union has said that, and I quote, many Australian smelters face collapse without urgent intervention from state and federal governments. Will the federal government heed the AWU's warning and intervene to save copper jobs in North Queensland?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Ayres.
Well, of course, I should start this answer with noting the fact that there are workers in Mount Isa this week who are losing their jobs this week in the mining facility. And my heart goes out to them. I understand how important those jobs are. And Glencore's decision in relation to its copper mining facilities is having a real impact in that community. The smelting facility is vital in its own right from an economic and social perspective, and Glencore is making decisions about the future of that facility in terms of its investment there and its strategic decision-making about the future of its whole asset, including its zinc assets. There is absolutely an imperative for clear action and coordination between the Commonwealth and the state governments. I welcome the approach that the Queensland Government has taken, and we are working very closely with them as we advance our way through this important...
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Canavan, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Minister, the Albanese government came to power promising to lower energy prices, yet now Australian unions are complaining that high energy prices are risking manufacturing jobs. Since your government was elected, electricity prices have risen 10% and gas prices 45% for Australian manufacturers. Will your government lower energy prices for Australian manufacturers in your second term?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Ayres.
I am focused on the relationship between energy prices and the future of manufacturing in Australia, absolutely. But a question from Senator Canavan about energy prices really is a bit like the arsonist complaining about how fast the fire brigade arrives, like one of those teenage arsonists with the stopwatch out, worrying about performance of the Rural Fire Service turning up to a bushfire.
Minister, Senator Cash.
Point of order on relevant personal insults to the person who asked the question is not a substitute for an answer.
I will thank you. Thank you, Senator Cash. I'm sure in the spirit of a good chamber and good chamber management, Senator Ayres will, one, withdraw a comment, and two, I'll ask you to go back to the question.
Well, I withdraw it, and I broaden the observation out to what happened after a decade of mismanagement, disinvestment, policy uncertainty, an absolutely scrambled egg of energy policy mess that has left the Australian energy system and this government with an enormous amount of work to do to recover what has happened to energy and Australian manufacturing over the course of that decade.
Senator Wong.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice. Thank you.